Hello, and thank you for joining me on my hobby adventure. I'm Dan, and this is Forlorn Hobbies. Welcome to my first proper video. I wanted to start with a general discussion on a topic that every hobbyist will face at some point: hobby burnout, or a lack of productivity with their hobby. This is something that I have particularly struggled with over the years, with many unfinished projects gathering dust, just waiting for their time to come again in my interest. Sometimes, when we face hobby block, that pile of shame can appear never-ending, which can lead to further unproductive hobby. Whilst this is an issue I still struggle with on occasion, and there is no magic fix for this, I have found several tips to be helpful in managing it. I have broken them down into different categories that I will now explain in turn, in the hopes that they may be of use to you. So the first thing that I try to do when I can feel that unproductiveness hitting and I'm no longer enjoying the project as I once was, is to revisit the background and the initial source of inspiration for it. This can help reignite your drive and motivation to continue with the project. This can be something as simple as reading a historical text, or a fantasy novel such as Lord of the Rings, science fiction like Horus Heresy or other Black Library materials, that allows you to revisit and dive back in to the thing that drew it to you and gave you that inspiration. Now, you can also watch a film or a series. Now, this can be again a historical drama, fantasy, science fiction, but the example that I think is the easiest to give is, recently I've been painting a Rohan army for Middle-earth, and there's nothing more motivating for that than a quick watch of the ride of the Rohirrim on the Pelennor fields, and that gets my hobby mojo back with no issues. I'm always determined to carry on once I've seen that inspirational bit of film. If you're struggling to paint British Napoleonics, then watch Sharp or Waterloo. Alternatively, visiting museums or other historical places can help inspire projects and can be a good source of reference to help you complete a related project. Quite often, historical places can also serve as inspiration for fantasy projects as well. For example, the colourful heraldic displays and tales of knightly orders and chivalry have heavily influenced many a Bretonian army. The architecture as well can help inspire terrain projects or display boards which have become more frequent at certain events. I also find setting time limits on your hobby sessions can help to boost your productivity. Fitting in half an hour here and there can produce far more than by sitting there and forcing yourself to paint for hours at a time, which often leads to a dislike for that particular project and can cause long-term burnout. This approach enables you to establish a consistent routine that offers you a healthier balance between work, life commitments, and your hobby. It is also a good idea to have a set plan in mind for each session, like painting a specific amount of stages on a specific number of minis, or getting a mini to a stage where it can be left, like after a wash or a shade, so that you can easily identify where you have got to, and then you can just pick it up and carry straight on in the next session. As someone who often has several projects on the go at any one time, I find that it can be very helpful to rotate between projects in order to keep your enthusiasm for them fresh. So instead of painting the same thing over and over until it's done, mix it up a little, take a break, Once the first squad or battalion is done, go and paint something else before returning to do the next squad or battalion, even if it is just a few models with a simple scheme. For me, I have found the perfect thing to be a Mordor army for Middle-earth, as I had a lot of Morannon sitting in my pile of shame that were left over from various starter sets that I have bought over the years, and I saw this as a way to work through them without the added pressure that usually comes with finishing a project. Using this approach to break up my more dedicated projects, I've managed to paint up over 100 of them to a reasonable standard with little effort, other than taking a break from painting more detailed minis, like my Defenders of Helm's Deep or Last Alliance forces that I have taken to tournaments recently. It has also enabled me to enjoy painting them, rather than just wishing to get it over and done with. I'm now down to my last 5 orcs, so I have now started to prep several battalions worth of Austrians to fulfill a similar palette cleanser role in my painting process. Alternatively, engaging or rotating to other hobbies could also fulfill a similar break, because if it starts to feel like a chore, it's not going to remain enjoyable. Another thing that I find useful is to limit my expectations and to be realistic when approaching a project. Unless you are purely a painter, or have some unnatural skill of just churning out high-quality miniatures at a rate us mere mortals can only dream of, it is useful to manage your expectations when starting a project to avoid being overwhelmed. Some systems that require a handful or a few dozen miniatures, like Middle-earth, specialist games like Necromunda and Mordheim, or other games such as Silver Bayonet, Frostgrave, and many others, with an honourable shout-out to Napoleonic Wargaming's long-teased Lord of the Sharp, in the hope that he finally finishes it. These small skirmish games require less minis, and each mini often has their own unique character to which you can easily justify spending extra time and going that little bit further in their paint job. And more importantly, that uniqueness gives you much more enjoyment because you're not painting the same thing over and over again. However, games that require many units, battalions or brigades often require dozens or even hundreds of models, such as Black Powder, Hail Caesar, and others. Therefore, it can require a different mindset and approach to completing a project. Having a quick and simple scheme will help you churn out units whilst reserving the more detailed paint jobs to command stands and characters, as these are where people's attentions are most likely drawn, and almost no one will complain that the back rank of the 48-man battalion of Austrians doesn't have 3 layers and extreme highlights on their white uniforms. This is something that I still struggle with, as I am always critical of my own work, which is one of the biggest barriers to my productivity. However, finding a simplified approach to painting minis, like contrast and speed paints, will still give you decent results, which can be developed further on certain key models that divert attention, especially if gaming is your main intention with them. This is about finding a balance between time and quality that you are happy with. Attending events or a local gaming club is not only a great idea for socializing and sharing the enjoyment of the gaming aspect of the hobby, it can be a great driving force for your productivity in being determined to finish off that project. A good gaming experience can help reignite your motivation or even inspire additions or conversion ideas to commemorate specific deeds that have been performed on the tabletop. Attending events often comes with a requirement of using fully painted armies. This gives you a fixed deadline to work towards, often with most being announced with a good amount of time. like several months beforehand, so unless you get a last-minute ticket, like I did for last year's Throne of Skulls, it was not fun having to paint 600 points of Middle-earth in less than a week. You can plan accordingly and break the project down to a few models, units, or a battalion a week until the event. However, from experience, is an event really an event unless you are still painting or basing the night before until the early hours in your hotel room? It could also just be attending a show, or just a casual gaming weekend with your friends. That could give you a date to get things done by. It might not be required to have everything painted in an informal setting, but it offers you an opportunity for a personal challenge to working to a deadline, and that helps you be more productive. One of the recent Black Powder weekends that we had, where we're doing our 100 Days campaign, and that, I didn't need to paint anything, but I set a challenge of painting a brigade of Prussian hussars for it. Not only does a deadline help, just attending events or gaming weekends can offer endless sources of inspiration. Looking at other people's fully painted armies, the display boards that they have made, and even the painting competitions can offer you that motivation to get on or start a new project. Community engagement can also offer an endless supply of encouragement and help from like-minded people, whether it is from your local gaming group or the wider online community on various social media platforms. The most recent event that I have been involved in was the Under Eagles to Glory event weekend, hosted by Tim from Napoleonic Wargaming. It was great to see so many like-minded people come together and share in their hobby experience, and share their passion for that specific era. It left me with many ideas, especially seeing the amount of Russian armies being brought has finally motivated me to take the plunge and start a Russian army of my own. The last point that I will cover is that relating to checklists and hobby bingo. Over the last couple of years, I have found it helpful to keep a list of the models that I have completed. To keep track of my progress each month, I have found it helpful to look back when I have felt incredibly unproductive, to actually see that I have painted far more than I had thought. Each month will vary, especially depending on the time that you have available. For example, I often find when the days are shorter in the winter months, I am usually more productive, as I am not outside as much. Other things can also influence the number of things that you have on your list, as it takes a lot longer to paint larger miniatures such as tanks or monsters than it does to paint your average standard infantry unit. Hobby bingo sheets offer a similar motivation. These have become more prevalent since lockdown. The examples that I have provided in the video are from the Games Workshop, especially relating to their Middle-earth one, although they do one for each of their main systems, and the one that has been produced by Tim from Napoleonic Wargaming. These offer a variety of hobby-related options that you can tick off throughout the year that will help keep you engaged in the project. This could be as simple as painting a character or a unit to an X amount of points or even a brigade. They also include options to offer inspiration, like read a book such as Lord of the Rings or a historical novel, or look at various source material, or watch films such as the Lord of the Rings trilogy again, or Waterloo, which also keep you engaged and motivated and help you to have some downtime whilst completing the hobby projects. Remember, this is not an exhaustive list, but rather a reflection of the things that I find helpful to keep me productive and avoid getting hobby block, and to ensure that, most of all, that I can enjoy my hobby time. Please feel free to share your own tips and experiences in the comments below. I would also like to take an opportunity to share my thoughts on the direction of this channel. I have three main ideas that I will be pursuing. The first is to have a series of painting videos. Now these will not be in depth, but aimed at quick and easy paint schemes to help people that are getting started, or that just want to get their minis painted and on the table. This series will cover a variety of systems, although most of the content will be historically based, as that is my main focus. The second series will be that around historical characters that I find interesting, having an in-depth kind of biography whilst painting a miniature for them. And finally, the main thing that I wish to focus on is having a more in-depth series that will focus on my hobby process when I approach each project. This will start from exploring the background and inspiration that drew me to the project, as well as my thoughts process and decisions on what exactly will I be doing, how I see it building, and following it all the way through to the completion with the final showcase. Although, like many of Tim's series on Napoleonic Wargaming, you may end up waiting a fair while for the finale of each series. I'd also like to apologise for the inconsistency of the sound in this video. This is something that is new to me, and I am still learning, but I will hopefully have it sorted out soon. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy your hobby.